Procrastination is one of the most misunderstood human behaviors. It is often mistaken for laziness, poor time management, or lack of discipline. In reality, procrastination is a deeply emotional and psychological response, one rooted in fear, self-protection, and the brain's attempt to regulate discomfort. Understanding why we procrastinate requires looking beyond surface behaviors and into the inner conflicts shaping our decisions. At its core, procrastination is not about avoiding work. It is about avoiding feelings. Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem. Modern psychology defines procrastination as the voluntary delay of an intended action despite expecting negative consequences. If people were simply lazy, they wouldn't feel guilt, stress, or anxiety while procrastinating. Yet procrastinators often experience intense emotional distress, sometimes more than people who act immediately. This paradox reveals the truth. Procrastination is a coping mechanism. When a task triggers uncomfortable emotions such as anxiety, boredom, self-doubt, or fear of failure, the brain seeks immediate relief. Delaying the task temporarily reduces emotional discomfort, even if it creates larger problems later. In other words, procrastination works in the short term but fails in the long term. The brain's reward system and instant gratification. Procrastination is also shaped by how the brain processes rewards. The human brain is wired to prioritize immediate pleasure over delayed rewards, a tendency driven by the limbic system. This emotional brain responds strongly to activities that offer instant gratification, scrolling, chatting, entertainment, while undervaluing future benefits. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and self-control, understands the importance of long-term goals. But when emotional discomfort is high, the limbic system often overpowers it. This creates an internal conflict. One part of the brain wants comfort now. Another part wants success later. Procrastination occurs when comfort wins. Fear, the hidden driver behind delay. One of the strongest psychological roots of procrastination is fear, though it often operates subconsciously. Fear of failure. Many people delay tasks because success feels uncertain. If they try and fail, it confirms their worst beliefs about themselves. Procrastination offers an escape. If I don't try, I can't fail. Ironically, this avoidance increases the likelihood of failure, reinforcing the fear it was meant to prevent. Fear of success. Success can also be threatening. It brings higher expectations, increased responsibility, and the pressure to maintain performance. For some, delaying progress feels safer than stepping into a new identity. Fear of judgment. Tasks involving evaluation, presentations, exams, creative work trigger anxiety about how others will perceive us. Procrastination becomes a shield against potential criticism. Perfectionism and procrastination, a toxic pair. Contrary to popular belief, procrastinators are often highly driven and self-critical. Perfectionism plays a major role. Perfectionists set unrealistically high standards and equate performance with self-worth. When a task cannot be done perfectly, starting it feels emotionally dangerous. Delaying becomes a way to avoid confronting imperfection. This creates a loop. 1. High standards raise anxiety. 2. Anxiety triggers avoidance. 3. Avoidance fuels guilt. 4. Guilt reinforces self-criticism. 5. Self-criticism increases anxiety. Procrastination is not a lack of care. It is often the result of caring too much. The role of identity and self-beliefs. Procrastination is deeply tied to how people see themselves. If someone believes, "I'm bad at starting things. I always mess up. I work better under pressure," these beliefs shape behavior. The brain acts in ways that confirm identity, even when it is harmful. Procrastination becomes self-reinforcing, strengthening negative self-concepts over time. This is why advice like "just be disciplined" rarely works. Behavior does not change sustainably without addressing identity. Task aversion and cognitive overload. Some tasks trigger procrastination simply because they are mentally overwhelming. Large, vague, or complex tasks increase cognitive load, making it difficult for the brain to know where to begin. When clarity is low, anxiety rises. When anxiety rises, avoidance follows. Procrastination thrives in uncertainty. The brain prefers clear, achievable actions over ambiguous demands. time distortion, and the future self. Psychological research shows that people perceive their future selves almost like strangers. This phenomenon, known as temporal discounting, explains why future consequences feel less real than present discomfort. When procrastinating, the brain unconsciously thinks, "Future me will handle it. That stress belongs to someone else." The disconnect between present self and future self allows short-term relief at long-term cost. Only when deadlines approach does the future become emotionally real, triggering panic-driven action. Stress, energy, and decision fatigue. Procrastination increases when mental energy is low. Stress, poor sleep, emotional exhaustion, and constant decision-making weaken self-control. The brain under fatigue shifts toward short-term emotional regulation rather than long-term planning. This explains why people procrastinate more at night or after draining days. Procrastination is not a moral failure. It is often a signal of depleted psychological resources. Why procrastination feels rational in the moment. In the moment, procrastination often feels logical. I'll do better when I feel motivated. I need to be in the right mood. I work better under pressure. These beliefs reduce guilt temporarily, but motivation rarely precedes action. Action creates motivation. Waiting for the perfect emotional state keeps people stuck. Procrastination offers emotional logic, not practical logic. Breaking the cycle, psychological shifts that matter. Overcoming procrastination is not about forcing productivity. It is about changing the emotional relationship with tasks. Lower the emotional stakes. When tasks stop being tied to self-worth, starting becomes easier. Progress matters more than perfection. Shrink the task. The brain resists large commitments but accepts small actions. Starting is often the hardest part, not continuing. Practice self-compassion. Harsh self-criticism increases procrastination. Compassion reduces fear and restores emotional safety, making action possible. Focus on process, not mood. Waiting to feel ready keeps people trapped. Acting despite discomfort rewires the brain's response to tasks. The deeper meaning of procrastination. Procrastination is not a character flaw. It is a psychological signal, one that reveals where fear, identity, emotion, and motivation collide. When understood properly, procrastination becomes information rather than evidence of weakness. People do not procrastinate because they don't care. They procrastinate because they care and are afraid of what that caring exposes. Understanding this truth transforms procrastination from an enemy into a guide, pointing toward unresolved fears, unmet needs, and untapped potential.